My parents showed up at my graduation, smiling like they cared. Then they sent a $5,000 bill. They demanded my savings, threatened my job, and then my mom faked a heart attack. I grew up in a small house in Seattle, Washington, chasing a love that always seemed just out of reach. My parents, James and Linda Carter, were like shadows there, but never truly present. I was 6 when I first tried to win their approval. One Saturday, I woke up at dawn, my tiny hands clutching a rag and a bucket of soapy water. I scrubbed every inch of our cramped living room, polished the kitchen counters, even swept the porch. My arms ached, but my heart raced with hope. I pictured my mom smiling, my dad ruffling my hair, saying, "We're proud of you, Ethan." But when they woke up, they barely glanced at my work. Mom flicked on the TV. Dad muttered about my sweaty shirt and told me to change. I stood there, blinking back tears, feeling smaller than ever. That moment defined my childhood. I spent years chasing their affection, like a dog begging for scraps. I'd mow neighbors' lawns in the scorching summer heat, saving every penny to take us out for Sunday dinners at a local diner in Capitol Hill. I thought a hot meal, maybe some laughter, would make them see me, but they'd eat in silence, barely acknowledging the food or me. I can't remember a single "I love you" from either of them, not once. Their indifference carved a hole in me, one I tried to fill with effort, with perfection, with anything that might make them care. By the time I was a teenager, I was working odd jobs delivering papers, washing cars in Fremont, anything to earn their nod of approval. At 16, I used my savings, nearly $2,000, to pay off the last of Dad's car loan, thinking it'd finally make him proud. He took the keys, drove off, and never mentioned it again. Mom just asked why I hadn't bought her something nice instead. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing wrong. Why wasn't I enough? The weight of their neglect pressed down on me, heavy and unrelenting, shaping me into a kid who apologized for existing. I learned early that love, in our house, came with strings. Mom would hint at needing money for emergencies, like new clothes or a weekend getaway. Dad would lecture me about family duty whenever I hesitated. I gave and gave, hoping each sacrifice would earn me a place in their hearts. It never did. By the time I was 18, I was exhausted, a hollowed-out version of myself, still clinging to the dream of a family that didn't exist. Seattle, with its gray skies and misty air, felt like a mirror of my life, beautiful on the outside, but cold and empty where it mattered most. Looking back, I see that 6-year-old boy, scrubbing floors in the dim morning light, desperate for a kind word. I wish I could tell him he didn't need to earn love, that he was enough just as he was. But that lesson would take years to learn, and it would come at a cost I never could have imagined. I was 23 when the weight of my childhood finally broke me. My parents, James and Linda Carter, had always made it clear I was a burden, but their words that summer in Seattle cut deeper than ever. One evening, over a tense dinner at our worn-out kitchen table, Dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "You should go to college out of state, Ethan. It's time you got out of our lives." Mom nodded, her face blank, stirring her coffee like it was just another Tuesday. My chest tightened, like someone had sucked the air out of the room. I'd spent years trying to please them, and this was my reward? I felt my eyes burn, tears spilling over before I could stop them. Dad scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Man up, Ethan. Stop crying like a kid." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. That night, I packed a single duffel bag and left for my friend Ethan's place in Tacoma, 40 miles away. The drive felt endless, the city lights blurring through my tears. Living with Ethan was like breathing for the first time. His tiny apartment, cluttered with secondhand furniture and old band posters, became my sanctuary. He didn't pry, didn't judge, just handed me a beer and said, "You're staying here as long as you need, man." I spent that summer piecing myself together, working odd jobs at coffee shops in Tacoma's Proctor district to save for college. I applied to a state school in Portland, Oregon, not because it was far, but because it was affordable and felt like a fresh start. When I got accepted, I felt a spark of something new hope, maybe. It was the first step toward healing, toward becoming someone my parents couldn't touch. Those college years in Portland were transformative. I moved into a dorm near the Willamette River, surrounded by people who didn't know the broken kid I'd been. I studied hard, majoring in business, and started therapy to untangle the mess my parents had left in my head. Slowly, I shed the shy, anxious teenager who'd begged for love. I made friends, joined study groups, even dated a little. By my senior year, I was a different person, confident, self-assured, someone who knew his worth. I landed an internship at a small marketing firm in downtown Portland, and for the first time, I felt like I was building a life that was mine. The scars from Seattle were still there, but they were fading, like old ink on a page. Still, the past had a way of creeping back. I'd get occasional texts from Mom, always vague, always with a hint of guilt. "We miss you, Ethan. Family should stick together." I'd stare at my phone, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I never responded. I couldn't shake the feeling that their sudden interest wasn't about love, it was about control. Dad called once, leaving a voicemail about helping with expenses, but I deleted it without calling back. I was done chasing their approval. Portland, with its rainy streets and cozy bookstores, felt like a shield, keeping me safe from their reach. As graduation loomed, I focused on the future. I'd saved enough to rent a small apartment with Ethan, who'd moved to to Portland to work as a graphic designer. We found a place in the Hawthorne district, a quirky spot with creaky floors and a view of Mount Tabor. I was proud of what I'd built: friends, a career path, a sense of self. For the first time, I wasn't the kid scrubbing floors for a scrap of affection. I was Ethan Carter, 23, ready to take on the world. But deep down, I knew my parents weren't done with me. I could feel it, like a storm brewing just out of sight. I just didn't know how bad it would get. I stood on the stage at Portland State University, my cap slightly askew, gripping my diploma like it was a lifeline. The crowd clapped, but my eyes were locked on two figures in the stands: my parents, James and Linda Carter. They were there, applauding, their faces lit with what looked like pride. My heart swelled. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they'd changed. Maybe we could finally be a family. I'd gotten their email a month before, out of the blue, saying they were proud of me and wanted to attend my graduation. I'd read it over and over, tears stinging my eyes. My inner child, the one who'd scrubbed floors at 6, was screaming with joy. I didn't even consider it might be a trap. I replied instantly, "Yes, I'd love for you to be there." I ignored the small voice in my gut whispering caution. The ceremony was a blur of handshakes and smiles. I gave a short speech, my voice cracking as I glanced at Mom and Dad. Seeing them there, in their best clothes, clapping for me, felt like a dream. Afterward, I found them outside the auditorium, near the Willamette River's edge. Mom hugged me, her perfume sharp and familiar. "We're so proud, Ethan," she said, her voice soft. Dad nodded, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "You did good, son." I teared up again, my chest tight with years of longing finally answered. We took photos, the Portland skyline glowing behind us, and for a moment, I believed we could start over. I offered to pay for their flights, their hotel, anything they needed, but they waved it off. No, Dad said. "We've got this." Their refusal made me trust them more. I should have known better. That night, I lay in my Hawthorne district apartment, replaying the day. Ethan, my roommate, was out with friends, so I had the place to myself. The quiet let my thoughts wander. I pictured family dinners, holidays, maybe even a real relationship. I'd been so focused on surviving my childhood that I hadn't realized how much I still wanted their love. The next day, I texted Mom, suggesting we grab coffee before they left Portland. She didn't reply. I figured they were busy, maybe catching an early flight back to Seattle. I pushed down the unease, telling myself it was nothing. I was wrong. 4 days later, I sat at my desk, scrolling through job applications, when my phone pinged, an email from Mom. My pulse quickened. I expected a follow-up, maybe a "great to see you," or even an "I love you." Instead, it was a cold, itemized receipt. Flight tickets from Seattle to Portland, $800. 5 nights at a downtown boutique hotel, $2,500. Meals, Ubers, a bottle of wine at a fancy restaurant, $1,700. Total, $5,000. They demanded I pay it all. No congratulations. No warmth. Just a bill, like I was a client, not their son. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The room spun. I felt like that 6-year-old again, cleaning the house for nothing. My stomach churned, a mix of betrayal and rage. Ethan found me pacing, my face red, muttering to myself. "They played me," I said, my voice breaking. "They didn't come for me. They came for this." I showed him the email. He shook his head, speechless. That night, I couldn't sleep, the weight of their deception crushing me. The graduation, the hugs, the smiles, it was all a lie. And the worst part, I'd let myself believe it. I sat at my desk in our Hawthorne district apartment, the email from my mom, Linda Carter, glaring at me from the screen. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. $5,000. That's what they thought my graduation was worth. I read the list again: flights, a fancy hotel, dinners at Portland's trendiest spots. No mention of the years I spent begging for their love. No trace of the pride they'd faked just days ago. I remembered offering to cover their trip, standing by the Willamette River after the ceremony, and they'd brushed it off with smiles. "We've got this," Dad had said. Now, here was the truth. A cold, calculated bill. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was stare, frozen, as the betrayal sank in. I called my therapist, Sarah, the next morning. My voice shook as I read her the email over the phone. "They played me, Sarah. I thought they cared." She listened, calm as always, and suggested I take a day to process before responding. "You're not that kid anymore, Ethan," she said. "You don't owe them anything." Her words grounded me, but the anger still burned. I thought about all the times I'd given them money as a teenager, hundreds for Mom's emergencies, thousands for Dad's car. I'd always hoped it would make them love me. It never did. This time, I wasn't going to beg for their approval. After a sleepless night, I made a decision. I'd pay their damn bill, but I'd make sure they knew how it felt to hurt me. I wrote a check for $5,001, $1 extra as a sarcastic thank you for showing up. But I didn't stop there. I drafted a letter, pouring out every wound they'd left on me. I wrote about the 6-year-old boy who cleaned the house at dawn, desperate for their praise. I wrote about crying myself to sleep, watching TV families hug while mine ignored me. I wrote about paying off Dad's car at 16, only to be met with silence. I called it what it was: emotional abuse. Then, I did something reckless. I lied. I told them I'd become a self-made millionaire, spinning a tale about crypto investments and a startup in Portland. I said I'd planned to buy them a vacation home in Bend, Oregon, as a thank you for coming to my graduation, but their email changed everything. "You'll get nothing now," I wrote. "Not a dime." I hit send, my heart racing, and blocked their numbers. For a few days, there was silence. I thought maybe I'd won, that they'd back off. Then the messages started. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years flooded my phone, calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace to the Carter name. My mom sent an email from a new account. "We're flying to Portland. You better have answers." My stomach dropped. I checked flight schedules from Seattle to Portland. Sure enough, a plane was landing in 3 hours. I tried calling Ethan to warn him, but my phone died mid-dial. Typical. I grabbed my charger and sped toward our apartment, stuck in Portland's afternoon traffic. Every red light felt like a lifetime, my mind racing with what they might say, what they might do. I'd spent years running from their control, and now they were coming for me again. When I got home, my worst fears were waiting in the living room. Mom and Dad sat on our couch, chatting with Ethan like old friends. Ethan's face screamed discomfort, his eyes begging for rescue. Mom stood, arms outstretched. "There's my boy," she said, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. Dad grinned, too calm, too polished. "We've been having a nice talk with Ethan," Mom said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. I stepped back, my jaw tight. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Mom's smile didn't falter. "Sweetie, there's been a misunderstanding about the graduation bill. We just wanted to show you how much we spent to support you." I didn't buy it, not for a second. Then I noticed Dad, his phone angled, snapping photos of our apartment, my mail, my desk, my life. "What are you doing?" I snapped. He pocketed the phone, mumbling about emails. I knew better. They weren't here to make peace. They were here to take something. I stood in my Hawthorne District apartment, staring at my parents, James and Linda Carter, as the air grew thick with tension. Dad's phone was back in his pocket, but I'd seen him snapping photos of my mail, my desk, my life. Mom's fake smile hung like a mask, her voice still dripping with that sickly sweet tone. "We just want to clear things up, Ethan," she said, folding her hands like she was praying. I didn't respond. Ethan, my roommate, gave me a look that screamed, "Get me out of here," before muttering an excuse about meeting friends and bolting for the door. The second it closed, their masks slipped. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes cold. "You've caused a lot of trouble with that millionaire lie," he said. "Everyone thinks you're hoarding money, refusing to help your own family." Mom chimed in, her voice sharp. "You could fix this, Ethan. Just help us out. A small loan, say $75,000 for our retirement fund. That's nothing for someone like you." My stomach twisted. They believed the lie I'd spun in anger, the one about being a crypto millionaire. I laughed, bitter and hollow. "I'm not a millionaire. I made it up because your bill hurt me." Dad snorted, his lip curling. "Don't play games. We've seen your Instagram fancy restaurants, weekend trips to Cannon Beach." I shook my head. Those were group outings, split bills, cheap getaways with friends. But to them, it looked like wealth, and they wanted a piece. "I'm not giving you money," I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "I don't have it, and even if I did, the answer's no." Mom's smile vanished, replaced by the icy glare I knew from childhood. "We can make things hard for you," she said. "Your boss might like to hear about that shoplifting incident from high school." I frowned. "I never shoplifted." Dad smirked. "They don't know that." I felt a chill, but I was ready. My therapist had warned me to document everything. I tapped my smartwatch, starting a recording. "I'm recording this," I said calmly. "If you're threatening to lie to my employer, I want it on record." Their faces shifted, like a switch flipped. Suddenly they were all smiles again. Mom babbling about reconnecting as a family. Dad stood, muttering about their hotel. As they moved toward the door, I saw Dad's hand graze my entry table, pocketing my spare key. "Put it back," I snapped. He acted shocked, dropping it like it was an accident. Then Mom clutched her chest, gasping, "My heart!" She slid down the wall, eyes wide. My pulse spiked. Was this real? I called 911, my hands shaking as I answered the operator's questions. Dad knelt beside her, looking worried, and for a moment, I doubted myself. What if she was actually sick? Guilt gnawed at me, even as my gut screamed it was a trick. Paramedics arrived in minutes, rushing into our Portland apartment with their gear. I stood back, heart pounding, as they checked Mom's vitals. One EMT pulled me aside. "Any history of heart issues?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "We're not close." He nodded, no judgment, and went back to her. After a quick exam, the other EMT helped Mom sit up. "Vitals are normal," she said. "Likely an anxiety attack, not a heart issue. Follow up with your doctor." Like magic, Mom perked up, refusing the hospital. "I'm fine now," she said, brushing off her skirt. The paramedics left, and I turned to them, my voice hard. "You need to go, now." Dad helped Mom up, giving me a look that sent ice down my spine. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "Family takes care of family." I held the door open, silent, until they were gone. I locked it, slid to the floor, shaking. I called Ethan, telling him it was safe to come back. We installed new locks that night, plus a security camera, both of us jumping at every noise. The next day, my phone pinged with a bank alert. Someone tried accessing my account from Seattle, my parents' city. I showed Ethan, my voice trembling. "They know my social security number, my birthday, everything." I spent hours on the phone, freezing my accounts, setting up new security. Then a blocked number called. I put it on speaker. Dad's voice was low, menacing. "We know people, Ethan. Ethan, computer people. People who can access things. Think about that. I hung up, saved the voicemail, and felt sick. They weren't stopping. They were escalating, and I was running out of ways to fight back. I couldn't stay in Portland any longer. The threats, the break-in attempts, the fake heart attack, it was too much. I needed a safe haven, somewhere my parents, James and Linda Carter, couldn't reach me. So I packed a bag and drove to Boise, Idaho, to stay with my grandmother, Margaret. Her small house, tucked in a quiet neighborhood near the Boise River, felt like a fortress of calm. Margaret welcomed me with a warm hug, her eyes sharp despite her age. "You're safe here, Ethan," she said, handing me a mug of tea. Over dinner, she revealed something chilling. My parents had been harassing her too. They'd called, demanding access to her savings, claiming she was too old to manage her money. "They're after my trust fund," she said, her voice steady but angry. "And now they think you've got millions." I told her everything, the graduation bill, the $75,000 demand, the bank account scare. Margaret listened, her face hardening. "They tried to have me declared incompetent last year," she said, "but I got a full cognitive assessment. My doctor says I'm sharper than most 40-year-olds. She showed me the paperwork, a shield against their lies. I felt a surge of admiration. She was 3 steps ahead, always had been. That night, I slept in her guest room, the first real rest I'd had in weeks. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, a neighbor called Margaret. "Someone's outside, taking pictures of your house." I peered through the curtains and saw Dad in a rental car, camera in hand. My heart sank. They'd found me. Margaret didn't hesitate. She called the local sheriff, Charles, a friend of hers. He arrived in minutes, his patrol car pulling up as Dad tried to drive off. I watched from the window, my pulse racing, as Charles spoke to him. Dad's face was tight, his hands gesturing wildly, but he left. That afternoon, a certified letter arrived from my parents' lawyer. They were seeking a competency hearing to control Margaret's finances. "A new low," she said, tossing the letter on the table. "They're desperate." I was furious, but Margaret just smiled. "I've got this, Ethan. They don't know who they're messing with." I knew I had to end this. Back in Portland, I'd been reactive, scrambling to protect myself. Now, I needed a plan. I called my lawyer, Jessica, and we crafted what she called the nuclear option. We compiled every piece of evidence: the recorded threats, the bank alert, the fake heart attack report, the photoshopped photos they'd sent to gaslight me. We drafted a cease and desist letter detailing their harassment and attached sealed envelopes addressed to their boss, their pastor, their neighbors. If they contacted me again, those envelopes would be mailed, exposing their lies to their community. I sent the package via certified mail, requiring their signatures. My hands shook as I handed it to the postal clerk. This was it, the line in the sand. A day later, Dad called from a new number. "You think you can threaten us?" he shouted. "We're your parents." I stayed calm, my voice ice. "I've spoken to your boss and Pastor William. They've heard the recordings. They know about the fraud attempts." Silence, then panic in his voice. "Let's calm down, Ethan. We can work this out." I cut him off. "This is the last time we speak. One more move, and those envelopes go out." I hung up, blocked the number, and felt a weight lift. For 3 weeks, silence. No calls, no emails, no relatives pleading their case. Margaret and I grew closer, sharing stories on her porch, her strength anchoring me. I started to believe I'd won. Then, my parents violated the cease and desist. They showed up at Margaret's house, demanding she change her will. When she refused, they took her phone, refusing to leave. I recorded Dad's threats, his voice low and menacing. That recording was enough. Jessica took it to court, and a judge granted permanent protective orders for both Margaret and me. We were free. I moved Margaret into my Portland apartment, her presence a balm to my battered heart. For the first time, I had a real family, one that didn't demand my soul in return. I sat on the couch in my Portland apartment, Margaret beside me, her laughter filling the room as she shared stories of my childhood I'd forgotten. The trust fund, $40,000, sat in a new account, safe from my parents' reach. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to spark their greed, enough to unravel the lies they'd built around me. Looking at Margaret, her eyes bright despite everything, I felt a peace I hadn't known since I was 6, scrubbing floors in Seattle for a love that never came. I used a chunk of the money to upgrade her Boise home's security, cameras and locks to keep James and Linda Carter out for good. Another portion went to Ethan, my roommate, for his slashed tires, a casualty of my parents' vendetta. The rest? I'm saving it for a duplex. 1 unit for me, 1 for Margaret. A real home, built on trust, not manipulation. I think about that 6-year-old boy often, the one who woke up at dawn, hoping a clean house would make his parents see him. I wish I could hug him, tell him it wasn't his fault, that some people can't give love the way kids need it. My parents saw me as a means to an end, a ticket to their dreams of wealth. Understanding that doesn't erase the pain, but it's freed me from their chains. I've learned family isn't blood, it's the people who show up without strings attached. Margaret, Ethan, my therapist Sarah, they're my family now, chosen and true. Forgiveness isn't what I'm after. It's not about holding grudges, it's about holding boundaries. My parents' final act violating the protective order, threatening Margaret, showed me they'll never change. But I have. I'm not the kid begging for scraps anymore. I'm Ethan Carter, 25, building a life on my terms. Portland's rainy streets, the hum of Hawthorne's coffee shops, the quiet moments moments with Margaret, they're my refuge. The trust fund isn't my future, it's just a tool. My future is the freedom to choose who I let in, to redefine family as love, not obligation.